Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the February 1st, 2024 Enforcement Advisory Committee meeting. My name is Kathy Johnson, and I am the chair for this committee this year. Just a brief thank you for Mr. Aguilera for chairing for the past few years. We do have two new EAC members that I'd like to introduce. One of them is actually here today, Ms. Christine Donnelly. And we have another member, new member, who is actually observing remotely for this meeting, Mr. Ben Town, and he will be here for our next meeting. So the CBA has provided the opportunity for the public to participate via the WebEx platform. When we take public comments, we will begin by taking public comments from those individuals attending the meeting at the California Board of Accountancy's headquarters. I will then ask the moderator to open up the lines for any public comment. And now I would like to, you'll be allowed it for public comment. You will be allowed it up to 5 minutes for public comment. Now I'd like to turn the meeting over to Mr. Mitchell to establish a quorum.
Doug Aguilera.
Present.
Jeff DeLizer.
Present.
Christine Donnelly.
Present.
Alan Gittleson.
Present.
Kathy Johnson.
Present.
David Kroll.
Present.
Nasi Reisian.
Present.
Jason Russell.
Present.
Chris Tetmeyer.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. The CBA's mission is to protect consumers by ensuring only qualified licensees practice public accountancy in accordance with the established professional standards. This mission is derived from the statutory requirement that the protection of the public shall be the highest priority for the California Board of Accountancy in exercising its licensing, regulatory, and disciplinary functions. Whenever the protection of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protection of the public shall be paramount. And with that said, we will start with our agenda. So in starting the agenda, I'd like to, the public comments for items not on the agenda is the first item. And so I'm going to go ahead and ask for the public comments. We'll start here with the audience here in Sacramento. Are there any public comments? So none heard. Now I will ask the moderator to open up the lines for public comments.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the committee, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment for items not on the agenda, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or use the raise hand icon. And audio-only participants may raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. And it appears there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you, moderator. So now we will move to agenda item 2. And for this agenda item, this is where will approve the minutes of the October 5th Enforcement Advisory Committee meeting. So does any member wish to make a motion?
I move that we accept the minutes as presented for the October 5th, 2023 Enforcement Advisory Committee meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Aguilera. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from other members? I will open it up. I'm sorry. Are there any questions or comments from other members? Now I will open it up to the public comment. Are there any members here at the headquarters that would like to make a comment? After not receiving any in-person comments, moderator, please open up the lines for public comment.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the committee, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or use the raise hand function. And audio-only participants may raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you, moderator. Now I'd like to call for the vote. Mr. Mitchell, would you please take roll?
Doug Aguilera,
Yes.
Jeff DeLizer,
Yes.
Christine Donnelly, Alan Gittleson,
Abstain.
Kathy Johnson,
Yes.
David Kroll,
Abstain.
Nasi Rysian,
Yes.
Jason Russell,
Yes.
Chris Tetmeyer.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Now we'll move right along to agenda item number 3, and we will hear the report from Ms. Katrina Salazar, Representative Liaison from the California Board of Accountancy.
Thank you so much, Chair Johnson and the members of this committee. As Chair Johnson mentioned, my name is Katrina Salazar. I am a California Board of Accountancy member. I'm here to provide a report to you today to update you on some of the things that have been happening at recent board meetings. Specifically, I will focus on the November 2023 Board of Accountancy meeting, as well as our recent January 2024 meeting. So there's a lot here, and I will break partway through to just make sure there aren't any questions or to see if I can provide any additional clarity. So starting with the November 16th and 17th 2023 board meeting. There were elections as usual, and so I'm excited to share with you that the board elected Joseph Rosenbaum, CPA, as our president, re-elected Yen Tu as vice president, and elected Christian Lata, CPA, as our secretary-treasurer for 2024. We also, as you know, appointed Kathy Johnson, CPA, to serve as this committee's Enforcement Advisory Committee Chair, and Jennifer Benjamin, CPA, was also appointed as Vice Chair for this committee. There was a lot of activity on this agenda. One of the important things that happened was we did have a presentation from Alfonso Alexander, who is the president of NASBA's Center for Public Trust, also something we call CPT. Lots of acronyms. So that was an update on what the Center for Public Trust is doing, how it is developing its student chapters around the United States, and the programming it does for students, its focus on historically Black colleges and university initiative, and also the student certification program that it hosts through NASBA's Ethical Leadership Certification Program. So that was some great education and important to kind of hear some of the things that are happening to reinforce ethical leadership with business leaders throughout the United States, focusing especially on those students. Of importance, we also improved regulatory language to eliminate the pre-licensure requirement of the professional ethics examination, which you may know as the PETH exam for CPAs, and it's been replaced with a requirement that new licensees complete a board-approved regulatory review course at their first CPA license renewal. So this is big news, and so it's important to talk to each of you a little bit about the background to the decision to eliminate PETH. So the first comment that requires clarity is really underscoring with everyone here and present and listening that the Board of Accountancy absolutely believes ethics continues to be critical importance, and it is a cornerstone of our profession and part of protecting the public. At the end of June of 2023, the Department of Consumer Affairs Office of Professional Examination Services, OPES, completed an occupational analysis and exam validation study. So this is standard practice and something that different boards go through. They looked at the 2 pre-licensure exams that our CPA uses for licensure. So that was the Uniform CPA exam, our national exam, as well as PEPS. And this study was lengthy and was required by the Business and Professions Code. So that is the authority for this process happening. OPS completed their work and then concluded that sufficient evidence was found to support the continued use of the National CPA exam as a licensure examination, but the PEP exam was not sufficiently supported by the evidence and did not appear to meet professional guidelines and technical standards. OPS indicated it had some concerns about the validity of using this as a licensure decision. So as part of its work, OPS found that much of the professional ethics that's covered by the PEP exam is actually redundant with the new CPA exam that launched in January of 2024. So that's an important distinction. Further, it found that only 13%, or about 6 to 7 questions on the PEP exam, is California specific and relates to California statutes and regulations that are not addressed by the CPA exam. So those are really important facts. So over the course of several meetings, the Board of Accountancy considered the study and the OPS recommendation, and what we decided at the November meeting was to initiate a rulemaking process. Nothing happens quickly and without due process. And that rulemaking was to eliminate PEP and replace it with a pre-licensure course. So in addition to the OPS information, there were other factors that the board did consider as it went through its process. And much of it focused on the way the profession has changed since the PEP exam was initially instituted. So to highlight some of those, academia has now embedded ethics in many of its courses, and so it's seen as part of the curriculum in a way that did not exist when PEP was initially implemented. Back in 2014, the Board of Accountancy also began requiring a minimum of 10 semester units in ethics study for licensure. And for well over a decade now, the board has required 4 hours of CPE in ethics for each renewal cycle. Now, I know you all are well aware of that one, but did want to remind you of that. So there are a lot of ways that ethics is represented because, again, the protection of the public is important, and the board took this conversation very seriously. So as for the timing of this transition, right now, the specific language in the rulemaking is out for public comment, and we anticipate that this will be the March agenda to review and then to answer any public comments we receive and adopt any final language. So there's a lot of background behind that. If you hear about the elimination of a licensure exam, that is a more complete story for you to understand what has happened through that board meeting and our additional meetings. There's other things that happened in November. Additionally, the board was focused on candidate needs as well, and so it determined that as a result of the significant health, economic, education, and travel disruptions, all of the impacts resulting in CPA exam candidate hardships, coupled with the impacts associated with the launch of the new version of the CPA exam in January of 2024, the board adopted a credit relief initiative. And that credit relief initiative, or CRI, what it did was it extends CPA exam credits that expired between January 30th of 2020 and December 31st of 2023, and that extension goes through June 30th of 2025. Okay. So staff also talked about an additional possible pathway for CPA firm owners who are licensed with general accounting experience. So this was a staff presentation to provide information to the Board of Accountancy on those owners who are licensed with their general accounting license and experience to gain experience necessary for them to convert their license to one that allows them to assign test reports and complete and test engagements. And so that was a preliminary informational discussion, and I would let you know that you can expect that to continue to be a topic on future agendas as more information is being gathered. And lastly, the board also approved a comment letter to NASBA, which supported the proposed revisions to the UAA, the Uniform Accountancy Act model rules, that related to peer review, with an additional suggestion to modify the language to make it a little bit more evergreen. It added some ability for, that comment was really suggested to modify the language because that evergreen nature would reduce the chance to need change in individual state regulations if verbiage or title changes happened. And so the board did make that additional comment to NASBA. And so it was a robust meeting in November with a lot that happened. Do you have any questions about these items?
Thank you, Ms.
Turn
Salazar.
it back to the chair.
Yes, I'd like to open it up and ask, are there any questions for Ms. Salazar from our members?
Thanks. I appreciate you giving us that recap. Very helpful. If the current ethics exam that you need to take before, as a last step to get your license, is redundant with the exam, then will there be a new ethics exam that the licensees have to take, on their renewal? So the idea is that you don't have to take it before you get licensed, but you will have to take it on your first renewal. Mm-hmm. Will they just take the 4 hours, the required 4 hours of ethics that all the other licensees have to take once every 6 years, or will there be a new exam developed that isn't so redundant?
So to that question, the board did not rule out considering future options, but this was seen as a prudent and appropriate intermediary step to accomplish the goals of moving to something that provided the ethics to be completed by the new licensees, just not prior to licensure. So I would expect that there could be additional comments, and I do think that there could be opportunities. This is an opinion, not a board opinion, but that there are opportunities for new ideas about how to consider that, but that has all been noted as something that needs to happen after this initial change is processed, and would be a longer term conversation to have about really what is going to best serve the needs of the Board of Accountancy as well as the consumers that rely upon the newly licensed members. Hopefully that answers the question. Yeah.
Thank you. Are any other states doing this?
California is unique. Well, not unique. There are a few states that do have ethics exams, but it is not common. And so there is not necessarily a model that is relevant for our board to follow. In this case, I think California, again, this is Katrina's a little bit of an opinion, was an early adopter in advocating for ethics. And so different states have chosen different ways to recognize that. And so this was more a reflection of the fact that the facts and the profession has, and the educational process has advanced, and it's a reflection of the changes that now this exam operates under. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. Taking a test one time has always been a little short-sighted in my opinion, so it's great that they're evolving the process.
Right.
I have a question. Regarding the firm owner program or project that was presented, was there any decisions made, or is it still kind of just in presentation mode, or did the board have any comments?
There were no decisions made. There was some robust conversation at the committee level, and the information that was presented, as I recall, was more reflective of some of the challenges that have been highlighted and some of the need to continue to gather additional information to move that conversation forward for the board to have more of a discussion and potentially consider some paths forward. So to be continued is probably the best message.
And Ms. Salazar, just for clarification, the regulatory exam, is it pre-licensure or after the first renewal? I'm not sure if I caught that timing correct.
It is at the initial renewal.
Thank you. Are there any additional member questions for Ms. Salazar? I believe you have some additional information to share.
That would be wonderful. Okay, thank you. The January 25th, 2024 meeting, which was only recently held, was very productive. It was a wonderful recap meeting to set the stage for a really successful 2024. So I'm just excited to report that to you. I was really pleased to see what happened. Our President Rosenbaum reported on the Leadership Roundtable that he held. This is part of the annual leadership process each January that really sets the Board of Accountancy's priorities for the upcoming year. And some of the highlights from that included preparation for the Board of Accountancy sunset review hearing. So that's anticipated to happen in early March. You may recall that the sunset review report for the legislature has been completed and submitted to the legislature. That's been a topic of conversation at multiple meetings in 2024. The Board of Accountancy continues to monitor the CPA pipeline and engage nationally with NASBA and other stakeholders, and to work on activities and also to work on the SURE CPA Act, which is, I believe, the students understanding requirements for education. Did I get that one right, Ms. O'Connor? Okay, wonderful. I'm so used to the acronym, sometimes I forget the reference to the full word. There was also a presentation from our communications team, and so there was highlighting the continued outreach and focus on outreach within the state of California to our students, our licensees, and consumers. There was an update to the strategic plan, and then there was a priority to continue the business modernization program. You all know that's been ongoing, and the board continues to work on ways to further the automation, especially for all of our stakeholders. The Board of Accountancy directed staff to work with President Rosenbaum on providing a response to NASBA's professional licensure task force concept regarding a structured experiential program that would provide a means for candidates with 120 educational units to gain additional experience in lieu of the 150-hour semester units to meet new licensure requirements. So that is an interesting topic, and I think one that is very important for Pipeline, you may have heard about. And the Board of Accountancy also approved changes to the Board of Accountancy's disciplinary guideline and model orders, which included modifying the definition of tolling and to make tolling an optional term of probation, and approved some language to add license surrender as a standard term of probation. Again, those have come about from experience of seeing positions that the board is seeing our licensees be in, but not having the model orders in place to allow some flexibility regarding tolling and surrender. There was a report that the Department of Finance of California has issued a letter requiring all state agencies immediately reduce current year expenditures, including any discretionary and non-mandated travel, which is a challenge to obviously traveling to engage on some of the national issues. And lastly, staff reported that the date that the Sunset Review report was delivered to the legislature, just for fun, I just want to clarify that that was on January 4th, and that report now is available on the board's website, so you can download it, and it is publicly available. It is a really amazing recap of the work that's been done in the past 4 years. So if you have not run through it, it is really a very interesting document and will provide a lot of information. It's amazing to see even the work that your committee here has done in the last 4 years. So the next board meeting is scheduled for March. That will happen on March 21st and 22nd. And I want to thank all of you for coming here to Sacramento, for volunteering your time. And your work here is so important to the operations of the board that I just want to make sure that I express, the work you do here keeps us effective, keeps us protecting the consumers, and the Board of Accountancy thanks you.
Thank you, Ms. Salazar. Are there any additional questions from members regarding Ms. Salazar's comments? I do have one question, Ms. Salazar. In terms of Sunset, how often is the board up for Sunset Review?
It happens every 4 years that the board needs to provide responses and report in front of the legislature of California. And I'm optimistic. I'm very excited about that process. Our board has created the staff have created and the board has reviewed a very comprehensive packet. And so that is part of our process to continue operations. We have to provide evidence that we are functioning effectively and efficiently on behalf of the state of California.
Thank you. And now I will open it up
I
to...
have a question. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Does the state subsidize the board, or is the board financially independent?
Board revenues are received from dues and licenses. License renewals and application fees. So the funds are not coming from the government. They're coming from our stakeholders that use our services.
There's no additional state subsidy.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? I don't want to be too quick and cut anyone off. Okay, great. Thank you. And now, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna, if the board is supported, and this organization supported by the stakeholders, how is the state the treasurer asking for a reduction in what we spend, and where does the surplus money go, if there's any?
That is a fantastic question. So the Board of Accountancy is part of the Department of Consumer Affairs, and its budget is subject to the state budgeting process. So the May revision, that the governor's budget comes out, the May revise, those all include approvals for our budgetary spending. So it is one of the interesting situations that our board faces, and it is not uncommon around the United States. Different licensing boards have different organizational structures and governance rules. So it is the situation that we have to deal with. In terms of excess funds, those funds, if there are additional funds, they do not go anywhere necessarily. To the second part of your question, they would remain in the Board of Accountancy's coffers, for lack of a better word. And what they do is they increase our months in reserve, which is our operating reserves that are available if the board had unusually high expenditures. And there can be significant cases that have costs. Again, it's very difficult to anticipate it. So having strong months in reserve is important to just ensuring that the board is prepared to tackle any legal cases or defend the profession or go through any needed activities in order to continue its routine and mandated operations to protect the consumers.
Thank you. Any other questions aside from the members? Okay, so now I will open it up to the for public comment. Are there any members of the public here at CBA headquarters who would like to make a comment? Okay. Thank you. So, moderator, could you please open up the lines for public comment?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the committee, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen or use the raise hand function. And audio-only participants may raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. All right, and seeing no requests for public comment, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you, moderator. Okay, so now we will move on to agenda item 4 for the report of Ms. Carrie O'Connor, our Chief Enforcement Division Officer.
Good morning. I'm Carrie O'Connor, and I'm the Chief of the Enforcement Division. The activity report before you today is for the first 5 months of fiscal year 2023-24. The CBA received just shy of 2,500 complaints, and the graph on the bottom of page 1 provides a comparison of the total complaints received as of the same reporting period for the prior 2 fiscal years. You will see that compared with the prior 2 fiscal years, we have received an increase, specifically a 64% increase over the same period last fiscal year. Moving on to page 2, we have included information on the top 3 complaint types, with complaints regarding unlicensed activity being the top complaint. Moving on to investigations and investigations pending on page 3, as of November 30th, we had closed nearly 2,800 cases, with 94% of those cases closed within 1 year. Enforcement had just a little over 1,700 cases in its pending investigations inventory, and there were 3 cases over 24 months which are still actively being investigated. 1 case we are conducting an IH for today, and 2 of the 3 cases have been referred to the Attorney General's office for filing of an accusation. You will see that the average day of our open cases was at 118 days. Moving on to discipline-related information that can be found on page 4 of the report. Looking at AG referrals, the CBA referred 17 matters to the AG's office and filed 13 pleadings, with the majority being accusations. And the CBA had 30 matters pending at the AG's office, and the CBA had taken final action on 15 disciplinary orders. I'll move on to citations and fines on page 5. The CBA issued 387 citations, and 78% of those citations were for violating the 2012 continuing education requirement. We received 43 citation and fine appeals, and we have withdrawn or modified 22 citations based on those appeals. And in most cases, the licensee either provided new mitigating evidence or complied with the issue that resulted in the issuance of the citation. Page 6 contains information regarding unlicensed activity. The CBA received 1,000 complaints regarding unlicensed activity. We have closed a little over 1,200 investigations, with the majority closed as a result of compliance. The final area of the report I'd like to highlight is on page 7, and that's probation monitoring. As of November 30th, we had 76 licensees on probation, with 3 new probationers since the last report, and we conducted 5 probation orientations since the last report. We identified 23 probation violations, with the majority being failure to submit the written quarterly reports. And at this time, I'd be happy to turn it over to Chair Johnson and answer any questions that members may have. Thank you.
Open it up now. Are there any member comments or questions?
Do you know how long the 20 and 12 rule has been? When did that come into?
It's been 10 years now.
Cannot believe it.
Maybe 11.
There's still that many people. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? Mr. Connor, I just have one additional question. Our average open cases for fiscal year 23-24 is 118 versus last year of 111. Could the root cause be complexity, or any idea of why that's creeping up?
Yeah, I would say that's an average range. So it kind of bounces back and forth between 110 and 120 days. Just depends on how quickly we can get a response from a licensee sometimes. But that is about the standard range that we see in that area.
Thank you. Are there any additional member comments or questions? If not, I'd like to open it up to members of the public at the CBA headquarters here. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I would like to ask the moderator to please open up the lines for public comment.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the committee, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or use the raise hand function. And audio-only participants may raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please, moderator. Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to thank everybody's participation in this open session, and we will now adjourn the open session and move into our closed session. Thank you.